Good evening. Welcome to News Tonight here on Metro Television. My name is Bridget Otu. Thank you very much for joining us this evening. The headlines tonight. Tonight we'll interrogate a U.S. State Department report which claims that Ghanaian judges take bribes to influence judgment. Embattled Member of Parliament for Asin North, James GYAKYE, files an application at the Supreme Court seeking a review of the restraining orders against him from performing his parliamentary duties. And still in the bulletin, government request for an extension of up to Friday to conclude negotiations and payment plan of the controversial neutrality allowance, which has resulted in an industrial action by QUAYSON. And news from elsewhere, 20 Muslim worshippers have been killed in Ethiopia's Amhara region after an ambush by an unidentified armed man. Right, hello again, and we're streaming on Twitter. Is at Metro TV GH. If you're on Facebook, it's at News Tonight and at Metro TV Ghana. Our very first story tonight, and government has requested for an extension of up to Friday to conclude negotiations and payment works on the controversial neutrality allowance. Now, this follows a meeting between the Finance and Labour Unemployment Relations Ministry, QUAYSON, and the National Labour Commission today.
The Deputy Labour Minister, Bright Rekubrobe, said they are hopeful that all outstanding issues will be resolved by Friday.
We are still talking. The last time we met, they asked us to go and meet, and we have not completed the discussions yet. So we've pleaded for a little bit of time. So we hope by Friday we'll be done. The directive was given. We are engaging. Engagement is not a one-way process. So we are still talking. That's why we're giving you up to Friday to talk. So both parties have agreed that let's engage. By Friday, we bring finality to the matter.
The National Labour Commission says it has instructed QUAYSON to call off the strike whilst the Finance Ministry prepares to pay the 20% neutrality allowance. Ofosu Asamoah is Executive Secretary of the Commission.
In a like manner, QUAYSON is also to call off the strike, right, which was contingent on the letter. QUAYSON is telling us that, yes, it is not for the Executive Secretary to stand here and call it. It's subject to, what do we call it, council meeting. So as he lives here, with the directive of the commission, he is writing to his council members tomorrow, invite them for a meeting on Friday, right, and then they will call off the strike.
Meanwhile, the Executive Secretary of QUAYSON, Isaac Bampo Addo, noted they will not call off the strike until an amicable solution is reached.
The government has pleaded up to Friday to give us the payment plan. Okay, no problem. We'll wait up to Friday and see what they'll come up with.
Comfortable with what you've heard today?
Well, that's what they said. So we'll wait up to Friday and see what happens.
Is there a possibility of suspending the strike since you have been given an assurance that up to Friday?
The most important thing is for you to get a letter. Yeah, and after the calling of the strike, our council has got procedures for calling off strikes. So once the letter is given, that will not be a problem.
And the embattled Member of Parliament for Asin North, James GYAKYE, has filed an application at the Supreme Court seeking a review of the restraining orders against him from performing his parliamentary duties. The Apex Court, in a 5-2 majority ruling on April 13, 2022, granted an interlocutory injunction filed by Michael Ankuma Nimfa. However, 13 days after the Apex Court's decision, the MP, through his lawyers, on Tuesday, April 26, filed a review application, and the application is expected to be moved on May 17, 2022. So we want to take a look at the grounds for the review application before engaging, a legal practitioner on this, on what the impact or what the decision is likely to be, especially for when you're going for a review at the Supreme Court. Okay, so the majority decision, these are the grounds for review motions. The majority decision was in patent and fundamental error and violated Article 21293 of the Constitution in assuming jurisdiction over the determination of the validity of a parliamentary election and proceeding to grant the application for interim injunction. The next ground, the court, it's also said the Apex Court in a 5-2 ruling. Can we have the next slide, please? All right, it says that the majority's decision was in patent and fundamental error in failing to appreciate that there was, in reality, an attempt to enforce the decision of the High Court disguised as an invocation of the original jurisdiction of the Supreme Court. Okay, so the majority decision violated Article 296, Clause A of the Constitution in exercising discretion unfairly and unreasonably. And finally, it says the decision to proceed with a hearing of the application for the interim injunction brought under the High Court, the Civil Procedure Rules, CI 47, prior to the parliamentary objection raised by the applicant's hearing was per incurium, the binding precedent of course, they are quoting a case of Cocklex versus Atier 2003-4. So those are the grounds for the review. But let's go on the phone and speak to a former member of parliament for Tamale Central and also a legal practitioner, Inifsa Fuseini, on this. A very good evening and thank you very much for joining us.
Bridget, good evening. How are you?
I'm well, thank you very much. So, for a lot of people, when they hear review at the Supreme Court, they aren't very excited because we're told that the justices hardly changes their mind. Is this different? And what will be that difference?
Well, this case presents an interesting interesting matter.
Right.
Raises very interesting issues. Now, we all know, as a matter of fact, that this case did not start at the Supreme Court. It started at the Cape Coast High Court.
Yes.
A decision was given which was appealed against to the Court of Appeal.
Right.
Now, the applicant here, who was the plaintiff in the High Court, then invoked the original jurisdiction of the Supreme Court,
right,
to injunct the Asin North MP from performing his duties as an MP. What the motion for a review is saying that there were exceptional circumstances, which exceptional circumstances will lead to a miscarriage of justice, not only to the people of Asin North, but also to the MP. And that reviewing all the exceptional circumstances, one should be able to convince the Supreme Court to vacate this injunction that it imposed on the Asin North MP on the 9th of May, on the 9th of March.
Okay, but do you see that happening?
13th of April, sorry, 13th of
yes,
April.
But do you see that happening?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I mean, it is quite confusing and strange that the Supreme Court had assumed jurisdiction in the matter in which it shares coordinate jurisdictions with the High Court.
Right.
Simply put, if the High Court and the Supreme Court share jurisdiction in the enforcement of rights, the first course of action is to go to the High Court before you go to the Supreme Court. And here's the case, the matter correctly started at the High Court. So one was left wondering why the Supreme Court assumed jurisdiction under such circumstances. To the relief of the plaintiff is to restrain perpetually the MP from performing his duties because of the decision of the High Court. Now, to grant an interim injunction restraining him from performing his duties is giving him and the case is not completed. The case is not ended yet because the seat has not been declared vacant. So you are giving the applicant a relief in perpetuity,
right? Because
the case has not ended, and then you granted him a relief while the case is still pending at the Court of Appeal. And thirdly, I mean, everybody is looking to see why would the Supreme Court engage in that jurisprudence when there's a plethora of cases in which it has simply said, no, go back to court, go back to the a court where you started and apply for the relief that you seek, and that we don't have jurisdiction. Why would the Supreme Court depart, or what motivated the Supreme Court to depart from that position? And that is why the respondent applicant hearing, that is the QUAYSON is going to court to try to persuade the court to reverse their 5-2 decision.
And before you go, so I mean, I know we've asked this question over and over again, but without sounding, repetitive. So what happens if, assuming, they uphold their original decision?
Well, that happens. It means that QUAYSON will not be able to go to Parliament until the final determination of the matter at the Court of Appeal.
All right. Thank you. Thank you very much for talking to us.
You're welcome.
Former member of Parliament and also a legal practitioner. Now, candidates for chairmanship position in the ETHIOPIA constituency in the Western region have pledged to ensure peaceful elections, and they will abide by the results and support candidates to emerge victorious in the 2024 presidential and parliamentary elections. And the elections in the constituency are scheduled for Sunday, 27th April 2022.
The acting chairman, Abdullahi Tufelo, is being fiercely challenged by two veteran politicians in the constituency, Isaac Bedouin Kansa, former ETHIOPIA constituency organizer of the NPP, and Frederick Dodu. Abdullahi Tufelo, however, says, having served the community in various positions for over 25 years, the two other contenders are no match to him.
I've served the constituency for almost 28 to 30 years. I started as polling station executive in 1996. Even 1992, I manned a polling station for the late Dubahin, 1992. And we started a polling station executive position in 1996. So I started mine in 1996 up to 2012 when I rose to the position of electoral area coordinator. So for so long, the delegate knows the way I've been sincere to the constituency, the way I worked to the constituency. That's why I'm very, very sure they will vote for me.
Frederick Dodu, popularly called Freddie King, says his administrative acumen, unifying personality, selfless service to the party, and transformative objectives makes him ideal for the position.
I'm going to base my point on four areas. One, taking into consideration my political experience, exposure, and connection in the party. I mean, the experience-wise, when it comes to it, so it's like serving the party too has been for the past 25 to 26 years in the party. I joined the party at a very younger age, that is in 1996. And then we have been with the party throughout, learning at the feet of great men in the party. And then the experience that we have gotten from our youthful age through our university age, doing TESCON stuffs. And then after university, serving the party in different capacity. That's what when you ask me about the position, I said I'm a servant of the party. Because my focus has always been how to work hard to retain the party in power or bring back the party in power.
The third candidate, Isaac Bedouin Kansa, touts his achievements as a former constituency organizer, saying the dynamics in the area will favor him.
I've worked for the party. Like 2012, I was acting, so 2013, then we contested, then I won as the organizer. From 2013 up to 2016, but the work that I've done, it is very marvelous. The constituency, everybody who is listening to me or watching me live will testify that Isaac Bedouin Kansa really have worked for the party. Now, if such big position is now vacant, and I found out that my two contestants, in fact, between them, I stand tall because I am assembly member. Though the assembly is not partisan, but when it comes to the grassroots here, it's partisan. And you see that work that I'm doing, it's for the interest of the party.
All the candidates pledged for peace and called for support for the party to win the 2024 general elections.
Right, and that election is on Sunday, May 1. I know earlier I said 27. Today is actually 27, so it couldn't have been that. So it's Sunday, May 1, 2022. Now, it's been 50 years since Ghana's first president, Osajifo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, passed on. And he was the founding father of the Convention People's Party, CPP, formed in 1949 during the struggle for Ghana's independence. In honoring him after 50 years of his demise, the party met to lay a wreath on his tomb and admits internal wranglings.
A man of invigorating integrity and a vibrant personality, encompassing simplicity and frankness of thought. That is so Osajifo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah was, just as the Convention People's Party, CPP, does every year to mark his demise and legacy. They laid wreath on his tomb, followed by the pouring of libation, which saw the priest incant and invoke curses on persons who do not wish the party well.
Amen.
In an address by the party delivered by the General Secretary Nana Chimpim Jantwa, she called on government to give the CPP back its infrastructure like the Building and Housing Information Ministry.
On this occasion, we want to reiterate our request for the return of our assets of the CPP as a move to deepen comradeship and promote reparation. Your Excellency, it will be worthwhile to return to us the Information Ministry building and the Ghana Fire Service headquarters, among many others. Your Excellency, we hope you will oblige us this request.
The former chair of the party, Hajia Hamdatu Ibrahim, also bemoaned the state of the Kwame Nkrumah Memorial Park and Mausoleum.
Look at the premises on which we are going to, where he was laid. It is very, very pathetic. Our great leader, Osajifo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, when leaders of Africa and even the world pay a visit to Ghana, everybody wants to come to the Kwame Nkrumah Mausoleum. But I'm not sure what is happening here is something to be proud of as Nkrumahist.
She also expressed her displeasure at the state of the CPP, saying that the Council of Elders in the CPP are illegally constituted.
When they did the meeting and said they've interdicted 3, the Council of Elders did not say anything. But when a properly constituted Central Committee took a decision, then the Council of Elders said it's illegal. Even there, the Council of Elders are illegally constituted. I will say it, they are illegally constituted because more than 12 years, there's no election. One chairman till today. So that's why there's total confusion. And ask anybody in the Convention People's Party, since this chairman became the Council of Elders, he has never solved one problem.
In the 2020 general elections, the Convention People's Party polled 12,000 votes, which was nowhere close for their presidential candidate, Ivor Kobina Greenstreet, to win the presidential election.
And state enterprises recorded significant gains between 2016 and 2020 from huge losses recorded the years before. Speaking at the Meet the Press series in Accra, Public Sector Minister Joseph Kujo disclosed that from 5.16 billion cedi loss in 2019, state enterprise reduced losses to 2.61 billion in 2020.
At the Ministry of Information, Minister responsible for public enterprises, Joseph Kujo, mentioned that state enterprises with total assets of 417 million Ghana cedis recorded total net profit of over 12 million Ghana cedis.
The SIGA Act introduces the general term specified entities in the 3 categories. The combined profit generated from that space is in excess of 12 billion. But I know our public discourse has always focused on the losses. And, you know, as we chastise non-performance in every enterprise, we have to also applaud the performers so that our evaluation and assessment of performance will be complete.
He acknowledged that state-owned enterprises have encountered many challenges over the years, including fragmented oversight, lack of transparency and accountability, and continuous losses, but these enterprises have taken steps to improve their performance.
We have seen improved profitability in the SOE sector over the period that we've compiled the state ownership report. Loss reduction, which is what has engaged our attention, I must even say, you can cite Ghana Water, the size of the loss it made in 2019, and compare with the loss it made in 2020. ECG, same. The loss was bigger in 19 and smaller in 2020. And all these list of companies, as you see, Greatco, VRA, ECG, Ghana Ports, all of them are undergoing what we call turnarounds.
The minister highlighted the way forward for state enterprises.
We're implementing state ownership, we're developing state ownership policy, the code of corporate governance, performance management framework, like I said, equity study, asset verification and valuation of defunct entities, that is, those entities that have collapsed, what we can get out of them, and all these are meant to bring the result we so desire from the public enterprise space.
Per the compiled 2020 State Ownership Report, state enterprises employed 76,949 people, representing 24.90% of public sector employment.
Right, and I'm sure you've seen the report, the U.S. reports on human rights abuses in Ghana. They talk about corruption within the judiciary. When we come back from the break, we'll look at it and its impact on the country and why some experts think we should dismiss this report. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Newsnight here on Metro Television. Now let's look at the report, the U.S. report on human rights abuses in Ghana. And international and policy security experts, including government spokesperson, have called for the 2021 Human Rights Report on Ghana issued by the United States Department of State to be dismissed. Released on April 12, 2020, the report cited Ghana for a number of human rights abuses, including clamping down on free speech, politically motivated killing, inhumane treatment, arbitrary arrest, and denial of fair trial, among others. Now, earlier on, Metro News security analyst Dr. Adam Bona posited that the United States has no moral right to be issuing reports on human rights abuses in Ghana, as its own record is nothing good, stressing the U.S. is noted for violating the rights of individuals, especially when they locked up people in Guantanamo Bay for years without trial. And we'll also try and speak to, engage other experts, including the co-chair, Citizens Movement Against Corruption, shortly. But let's look at highlights of the report here on our screens now. And says, corruption and lack of transparency in government. Ghanaian consulate in Washington, D.C. could not account for 355,000 visa fees. Free Senior High School Secretariat misspent more than $3.16 million. Corrupt practices resulted in $340 million of financial mismanagement, and a former Minister of Tourism retained 3 official vehicles for personal use after leaving office. And there were some reports of police violence against LGBTQI+ persons, beatings and public humiliation of LGBTQI persons by community members were common and growing. There was a notable increase in anti-LGBTQ+ statements by political, religious, and community leaders. Right, they mentioned dates, March 27, 22 persons arrested in Kwawu, Obomeng for participating in alleged lesbian wedding. May 20, police arrested 21 LGBTQI+ activists attending a conference in the city of Ho Volta region, and they have been released. The Ghana Police Office routinely impeded demonstrations, corruption, brutality, power training, lack of oversight, and an overburdened judicial system contributed to impunity. So those are highlights of the Human Rights Report. Let's go on Zoom and speak to co-chair of Citizens Movement Against Corruption, Adam Senanu. Adam, good evening and thank you very much for joining us. First question is, why do you think that the security experts are so dismissive of this report, given that there is detailed reports of malfeasance, they mentioned the Washington, D.C. embassy, the issue with the free SHS, but why are they so dismissive of it? Is that the right path to go?
Well, thank you. I'm not too surprised because I think that the narrative and the way it's been captured seeks to put Ghana in the worst possible light.
Right.
I, as a Ghanaian, reading it, I was upset myself. I was like, number one, the U.S. is involved in so many worst case scenarios. They probably are not the ones to be putting this out. It does not take away that some of the issues are factual and there are things that we ought to take on board ourselves as citizens and as a nation. However, having the U.S. document where the choice of words and the way it is portrayed, I think that they ought to have been a little more circumspect in how they put it out. And it kind of puts the entire governance system in an extremely bad light. So I'm not too surprised that security experts are saying that.
But beyond that, they are saying the Washington, D.C. consulate could not account for $355,000. We shouldn't overlook that. $3.16 million could not be accounted for or was misspent under the free senior high school. These are really serious issues that we should probably be looking at.
Absolutely. And so I'll be interested in how, in spite of the fact that some people are dismissive, the specific areas where there are factual statements that have been made of malfeasance or fraud or corruption ought to be taken on board by the parties that are relevant or that have been implicated. So if an embassy has been said to have lost money, we want to hear about from the current ambassador,
right?
If not from the Minister of Foreign Affairs, what has been done about this case, who has been found culpable, and what actions are we taking?
Okay, but then they mentioned the issue of LGBTQI+. First of all, were you surprised? And I also know that you're not particularly in support of it.
Well, no, I'm not too surprised. If the U.S. is going to write a report and they themselves have a certain position on these matters, it will certainly reflect in the write-up they make. So, not surprised at all at their writing.
Yeah, but what do you make of it? Persons, whether LGBTQ+, they would say they are human beings, correct? And must be treated as humans.
Yes, absolutely. And I think that every effort must be made to protect the dignity of human life. It doesn't matter whether it is LGBT, XYZ. And so they are deserving of the protection of the police. No other Ghanaian has a right to say A is lesbian or gay and therefore we're going to beat them. I think that is clear in our laws, and it is even what we have represented in the bill we've put before Parliament. So that kind of action must stop, and anybody found to be molesting or physically abusing such persons ought to be sanctioned accordingly.
Okay, but Senator, I want to go back to the source of it, that the U.S. and everybody say, U.S. has no moral right to issue this. So which country has the moral right to do so? Given the history of the world, is it the UK? Because if we're really digging, then we're going to find something in everybody's closet.
Yes, and so for that matter, that allows sovereign nations to take up their issues, whether they are governance-related, development-related, and I think it's a slippery slope where you have other foreign nations who have their own interests and one agenda beginning to try and, as it were, pick at your country and say, you're not doing this right, you're not doing that right. There's difficulty with that. So we are not expecting this from any other group. If it were the UN, where it is, as you would say, a collection of sovereign states who have come together, that's a different ball game. I think we'll all take a report from the UN on this from a different light. But to have the US painting our judiciary so badly and making such statements, it's not comfortable.
Why do you think that is? What is the interest there?
It is also because, as others have pointed out, they probably are much more culpable in some of these areas. When you talk about killings, when you talk about the abuse of human rights, I mean, there are things that the US has done that when you begin to then point this out, it makes it very difficult for anyone who looks at it ethically or morally to think that, I mean, you're not making an effort to stop some of the actions you've taken in the past and are still taking, and you're pointing out that others are doing this. I mean, the way and manner you do it will probably be encouraging if it's a suggestion that you've noticed this and you are, but when it's a downright categorical blacklisting, it makes people just feel like this is not about encouraging states to align. If especially we don't see that you yourself are making efforts in your backyard to do same.
Okay, thank you very much for talking to us. Senanu is a co-chair of Citizens Movement Against Corruption. Edem Senanu there. All right, so we're taking a break. When we come back, we'll bring you business. And remember, the Bank of Ghana has issued a notice to the general public on a cryptocurrency investment scheme called Citicoin. They're saying, be careful. If you put your money there, you do so at your own risk. We're back with more. Stay with us. Right, Winston Taki is here with the latest in business. Good evening, Winston.
Good evening, Bridget.
All right, go on.
Okay, thank you, Bridget. It's time to bring you business right after this. It's time to bring you business right now, and now to a false business story. The Ministry of Finance, in its latest release to the media, has attributed the growth projection announced by the Ghana Statistical Service of 5.4% for 2021 as a sign of robust economic recovery post-pandemic. Now, the Ministry of Finance, in its latest release to the media, has attributed the growth projection announced by the Ghana Statistical Service of 5.4% for 2021 as a sign of robust economic recovery.
Latest official GDP data released by the Ghana Statistical Service for the 2020 and 2021 shows that the economy has expanded more than was anticipated and exceeded the sub-Saharan Africa average growth of 4.5% for 2021. While the rate of debt accumulation has slowed to pre-pandemic levels, the physical expansion has also slowed. According to the Ghana Statistical Service, real GDP expanded by 7.0% in the fourth quarter of 2021 compared to the 4.3% growth recorded in the corresponding period of 2020. Similarly, non-oil real GDP in the fourth quarter of 2021 expanded by 7.6% compared to 5.7% for the same period in 2020. On an annual basis, the provisional real GDP growth for 2021 showed a positive outturn of 5.4%, exceeding the 4.4% 2021 projected outturn by 1 percentage point and the sub-Saharan African average growth by 0.9 percentage point. This is a clear confirmation that the economy is on a rebound post the COVID-19 pandemic that saw a revised growth rate of only 0.5% in 2020. The fiscal deficit, including energy and FinSec payments, is now showing a decline as a percentage of GDP from 15.0% to 14.7% of GDP for 2020. Ghana's public debt stock expressed as a percentage of GDP now stands at 76.6% of GDP at the end of 2021 compared earlier reported 80.1%. Similarly, the 2020 debt stock has also reduced from 76.1% to 74.4%, a further confirmation that the rate of debt accumulation has slowed to pre-pandemic levels.
We are joined on Zoom by finance and economic consultant King Carl Duho. Good evening and welcome to Newsnight.
Good evening, Winston. Thank you very much.
Great. It seems the 5.4% growth projection is quite optimistic as being projected by the Finance Ministry. Would that be possible amidst growing fuel prices, inflation, and also currency depreciation?
Yeah, so the growth projection that we have seen that have been released is pertaining the previous year, 2021, as against what happened in 2020. And you realize that in 2020, there was lockdown and economic activities were stalled. And because of that, the growth rates for that period were lower. And when we got to 2021, we saw that there were lockdown measures were being dropped off. And because of that, that is why we are seeing that growth. But the current events that are happening with regards to the Russia-Ukraine war and combining that with the COVID situation is something that may have a downward impact on the growth rates that we'll have in the coming periods. But also at the global level, the IMF and the World Bank have adjusted their growth rates in the recent meeting that they had to account for the impact of the war in Ukraine. And that will also affect us in the future unless there's drastic issues with regards to trade facilitation in our context.
Okay, Carl, the Ministry of Finance has hinted of reviewing the debt to GDP ratio to 76.6% instead of earlier projection by the Bank of Ghana, which gave out a figure of 80.1%. Is it a case of data misrepresentation or an economic readjustment?
Well, the measure of the GDP changes all the time. When there's rebasing and there is new updates, various ratios that underline the economic indicators that are connected to the GDP and the other measures are also changed. But what it means is that the debt to GDP ratio has reduced, and it means that we are below the 80% very feared level now. But also we have to understand that our tax to GDP ratio will also reduce, which would mean that that will not be good for us. When you look at the debt sustainability report that is released connecting to Ghana's debt issue level, there are various ratios, and it is not just about the debt to GDP. There's the debt service to export ratio, which is also critical. There's also external debt service to revenues ratio. So we cannot just over-focus on just the debt to GDP. We have to also look at the other aspects. What I have to say is that the new adjustments will signal some positive feedback to the investment community, and then but we have to be cautious so that we don't go starting to borrow again because we feel like the measures have changed.
All right. Thank you, Carl. King Carl is the financial and economic consultant who is speaking with us shortly. But let's move on to other interesting story. The CEO of Ghana Bankers Association, John Ewa, says the central bank has not given approval to any entity to deal or sell bitcoins and any other related product. He also warned individuals to be cautious before investing in any scheme that promises outrageous interest.
The governor and his team have been very clear that they have not issued any directive or approval for dealing in bitcoins and related products in Ghana, and therefore I think we would encourage financial service users, particularly customers of banks, to be very careful in companies that are popping up and masquerading as having the right approvals in place, and unfortunately may lose some money if some things don't go in the right direction. If Bank of Ghana has not approved, then the mandate to operate is not there. The SEC has also said they have not licensed these companies to be operating in the country, and therefore that is all I can say as an industry representative, that customers should be warned. We've seen it in history recent past where Bank of Ghana came out clearly and warned and said these companies have not been registered by us, and therefore to operate in the manner they are operating, and people still troop to these companies and had their fingers burnt. I do not think that we should go on that tangent this time. I believe if a business is operating illegally, there are legal remediations that can be undertaken. Bank of Ghana is the regulator. They have their own sanctioning power. But if they have not issued a license for your industry, then the power to regulate you is not there. But I'm sure from the Registrar General's Department, the SEC, and the other, even the police service can take action if there's credence to the stories that they are not properly registered.
That's all for business here on Newsnight. My name is Winston Taki. Bridget is standing by for the rest of the bulletin. Bridget?
Right, we're taking a break and we'll come back with sports. Stay with us. Right, Phil John Quarter-Bannerman has joined us with the latest in sports. Phil, go on.
Thank you very much. Up next, we'll bring you the latest in sports. Let's talk about West African football. The Black Satellites of Ghana are preparing for the WAFO Zone B tournament, which is starting next month. Their manager, Karim Zutu, said they will be ready for the tournament.
I'm very, very impressed, not because of the scores, but because of the mentality. I'm now building the mental toughness in them. You see, when we were down, I was happy when we were down. Now, I started to watch them from the way they would come out of the down to the up. And then they did it perfectly. So I'm okay. Gradually, I'm getting what I wanted. We were the previous champions. You are talking to me, you are talking about fear. They have to fear, not me. Luckily, I play Nigeria, and I played Nigeria in the first opening game.
Zuto is the head coach of the national under-20 team preparing for WAFO Zone B tournament expected to start next month. That's your sports. My name is Phil John Quarter. Studio was standing by for the latest in showbiz. My dear.
Thank you, Phil, for the updates in sports. It's time for entertainment news. My name is Asiedwa Akumia. April 26, 2022 was the media launch of hashtag No False News Zone campaign by Meta in partnership with EIB Network. Now, as part of the platforms to drive the campaign was a release of a comic book that highlighted the purpose of the campaign.
All fake news on social media has caused a lot of complications in the lives of people that fall victim to them, especially celebrities. Meta, formerly known as Facebook, has outdoored a campaign called hashtag No Fake News Zone campaign in Africa to help curb this issue. Metro News spoke to some representatives from Meta Africa to throw more light on what the campaign is about.
No False News Zone is our campaign that we're launching today in Ghana, and it's really about educating users around misinformation, the steps that they can take to really help to address. So the comic book, which is a great book that was created, is 3 short stories just giving different scenarios around how misinformation can occur and what some of the impacts can be, and also the steps that importantly people can take to help address, because at the end of the day this is a societal problem, so we all have responsibility, we as Meta, but equally media platforms, individuals as well.
The No False News Zone campaign has different elements to it. So we're launching a comic book. A comic book is a 3-part series that addresses misinformation in a Ghanaian setting. And so if you look at the different characters, there is the intern boy that addresses a demographic. There is the school nurse that addresses a demographic. Again, there is a doa, makeup student that also addresses another demographic. So this comic book we launched, apart from the comic book, we're doing audiovisuals, We're doing TV visuals on TV. We're engaging influencers to help us drive this conversation. We're doing radio jingles in Fante. Even the comic book we're adapting to radio so that people can, understand the audio drama and then drive the conversation from there as well. Not only are we doing that, we're engaging a few influencers to help us drive the message to their own audience, because we know that a lot of people have a lot of followers. And so we're just leveraging all of these platforms so that if we're not able to reach you on TV or on radio, we're at least able to reach you online, or we're able to reach you offline with the book. And the comic book is available and downloadable to everybody for free.
Well, that's it for entertainment news. My name is Esiodua Akumia. Bridget?
Thank you very much, Esiodua, for that. And international news is next. And 20 Muslim worshippers have been killed in Ethiopia's Amhara region after an ambush by unidentified armed men. An Islamic leader in the region said the violence was unrelated to conflict in the neighboring Tigray region, which began in November 2020 and spilled over into Amhara and Afar regions last year. A humanitarian source said 15 injured people had been transported to the Gondar Referral Hospital, and it was unclear how many had been shot or injured by explosives. Right, and that's it for News Night. It's exactly 9 p.m. My colleague Obodai Ashon will bring you Community Watch at 9 p.m. And he's looking at social challenges at Otukwejo, and also talks about the MCE meeting residents to address their conditions. So do join us at 9 p.m. My name is Bridget Otu. Have a very good evening.